Many of the quickest cars of the 1980s came out of Ferrari's Maranello factory, but the record holder was built on the other side of the Alps in Stuttgart, Germany. Originally developed to compete in Group B racing, the Porsche 959 became one of the most impressive road cars of the 1980s thanks in part to a twin-turbocharged flat-six engine, four-wheel drive, and composite materials that kept weight in check. 345 examples of the 959 were built between 1986 and 1993. Whether the rough CTR deserves a spot on this list is a point of debate. It's based on the Porsche 911, so it wasn't developed by the company from the ground up, and it was built in extremely limited numbers. Most historians agree only 29 examples were made from 1987 to 1991. We've chosen to add it because, like AMG's Hammer, it stands proud as one of the best performance cars of all time. Its 3.7-second time was made possible by a 463 brake horsepower twin-turbocharged flat-six, figures that remain spectacular even 33 years after its launch. In hindsight, the Ferrari F40 was one of the first hypercars. It was appreciably quicker than the firm's tamer models, it made very few concessions in the name of creature comforts, and it looked as quick as it was. And, while it competed in races all over the world, it was primarily developed as a road car. Ferrari often stressed it didn't develop the F40 in response to the Porsche 959. It created the car to celebrate its 40th birthday, and it would have built it even if the 959 had never existed. In all, 1315 were built between 1987 and 1992. Lamborghini regularly updated the Countach with design tweaks and mechanical upgrades during its unusually long production run. Its quickest evolution, the 5000 QV, arrived in 1985 in response to the Ferrari Testarosa with a 5.2-liter V12 that featured 4 valves per cylinder. 631 QVs were made from 1985 until 1988. For context, Lamborghini built about 2049 examples of the Countach between 1971 and 1990. Audi as we know it in 2020 is built on the success of the Sport Quattro. Its models weren't particularly quick or spectacularly sporty to drive until its engineers created a four-wheel drive system that was light, refined and user-friendly enough to put in a road car. It developed the Quattro system for rallying, and it won numerous events with it, but homologation requirements put about 220 road-legal coupes in the hands of regular motorists, though some historians claim Audi ended up building fewer than 200 units. Launched in 1975, the first series-produced Porsche 911 Turbo, called 930 internally, performed a 5.2 SEC sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour. It was one of the quickest cars of the 1970s, and it helped prove the benefits of turbocharging to the entire industry, but Porsche wasn't satisfied with resting on its laurels. It gradually made the 911 Turbo more powerful, notably by increasing the flat-six's size to 3.3 liters in 1978, and it managed to shave its acceleration time by several tenths of a second during the 1980s. Italian coach builder Zagato helped Aston Martin spur interest in its V8 during the second half of the 1980s by giving the coupe a much more contemporary design. It wore boxier lines, rectangular headlights, and a sharper rendition of the British firm's heritage lace grille. It was a new kind of Aston Martin that helped blaze the path the company followed during the 1990s. What didn't significantly change was under the bonnet. Power came from a mighty 5.3-liter V8 that developed 430 brake horsepower. Ferrari's GTO is the model that the F40, the F50, the Enzo and the LaFerrari trace their roots to. Although it looked like a 308 GTB on steroids, it was developed on a largely blank slate to compete in Group B rallying. It never competed in the series, but 272 road cars were built and quickly sold in 1984 and 1985. It was powered by a mid-mounted 2.8-liter V8 that was twin-turbocharged to 400 brake horsepower. The Ferrari Testarosa was one of the quintessential supercars of the 1980s. Pininfarina created a design that was impossible to miss thanks to styling cues like pop-up headlights and an unusually wide rear end dominated by horizontal slats. Its nearly flat deck lid hit a 4.9-liter flat 12 engine tuned to 390 brake horsepower in early cars, though that figure dropped to 380 when Ferrari added catalytic converters in 1989. In total, 7,177 examples of the Testarosa were built from 1984 to 1992, when it was replaced by the 512TR. Ferrari introduced the model's final evolution, the F512M, in 1994. AMG alchemized the Mercedes-Benz W124 into the Hammer in an era when it operated as a small tuner that made built-to-order cars rather than as Mercedes' volume-chasing performance sub-brand. It was available as a saloon and as a coupe, and both were based on the 300e model, but they traded their straight-six engine for a V8 borrowed from the W126. AMG offered four options during the Hammer's production run. Early on, it installed a 5.0-liter V8 tuned to 340 brake horsepower, though it gave buyers the option of ordering a 5.4-liter version with 355 brake horsepower on tap.